David Gergen joins us live now. He's advised U.S. Presidents Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Clinton, and helped found the Center for Public Leadership at Harvard. Mr. Gergen joins us live now. So thank you so much for being with us. So how does the weight of the presidency change under a recession?
How does the weight of their presidency, how would he be doing?
How does it affect the presidency if we go through a recession, the sort of pressure that Trump would be under?
I think the president is already coming under increasing pressure, and this could be the source of his undoing if he's not careful, if the economy falls apart. You know, we have many, many voters in this country who do not like the president's behavior, but they continue to support him because they believe he has done a good job with the economy. Some 26% of voters say that the main reason they support the president is because of his performance on the economy. So if you knock that out, and if that goes from being a positive factor into becoming a neutral or negative factor, you can imagine how much that jeopardizes his campaign for re-election. He's already running slightly behind. He does not have this election under control at all. But if he lost the economy, it would be really, really hard for him to win re-election.
But there is there's a huge swath of the population that will support President Trump no matter what, and in their mind, it is party over country. I mean, does that still count even in a recession?
True. Yes, that would still count under a recession, but it would be under. A lot of the people continue to stick with him. Evangelicals, for example, people who come from the evangelical religious viewpoint, they will continue to stick with him come hell or high water. But there are a lot of independents, and here's where he's got to be careful. It's the independents where he's finding some vulnerability on the economy, and they might well flee, and that could cost him the election. So he has an enormous amount riding on this, and in the meantime, you know, what he's doing with his tweets, whenever the economy looks up, you know, he takes all the credit. And whenever things have a darker hue, he heaps all the blame on the Federal Reserve and now today on the media. You know, that just doesn't fly with most voters. You know, if you're taking credit on one hand, you can't have it both ways. And I do think that his continuous interference in the Federal Reserve is a mistake. I've worked for presidents in the past who have really wanted to go out and beat up on the Federal Reserve, but their top advisors persuaded them not to do that in public. I remember particularly Bill Clinton, when he'd get really angry about the high interest rates at the Fed, and Bob Rubin, who came out of Goldman Sachs, you know, had been a CEO there, a very good one. I would persuade him, no, Mr. President, the more you challenge the manhood of the Fed, the more they will go just the opposite direction of what you want. So don't go public with it. And most presidents have respected the independence of the Fed, and it has served them well politically.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it is unprecedented, sort of having the U.S. president squarely blame Jerome Powell on Twitter, saying that he should be cutting interest rates more aggressively. But how do Democrats take advantage of the economic uncertainty in this country right now?
Well, I don't think it's very hard. They can certainly challenge the tax cuts. You know, the tax cuts were sold in this country, the Trump tax cuts, as bringing long-term lift to the American economy. And you can argue that that has not always turned out to be the case, particularly in the industrial sector now, you know, where things have, it looks more and more like the tax cuts, especially were sugar highs. They were not long-term vitamins for the economy. And that I think that argument is pretty easy to make right now. Look, but we are a long way from the elections. This economy, you know, just because we've had this inverted yield curve, we should not assume that we will be in a recession during the election season. There are many other issues to fight this thing out over. We don't know quite how this is ultimately going to bounce. The markets were, you know, the stock markets were in better shape today here in this country, but the long-term bond markets went down over this last trading day, which was not a good signal for the economy. But we simply don't know yet how this is all going to turn out. When the stock market was at a high this year in May, it was about 17% higher than when the year started. Even with these falls, yesterday we went down, it was still 11% higher than when we started. So don't count the president out, but these are definite warning signals to him and to his campaign.